Hello folks, welcome to the Blacksmith Shop. We're going to start off with a little show and tell, and you just wouldn't believe some of the stuff that has been presented today. Peter brought two different cultural
examples.
Yeah, some Ainu, which is indigenous Japanese cutlery. That includes the sheaths, and some of them are in different shapes, different conditions. But we wanted to study a little bit about the similarities between this culture, which is Japanese, early Japanese, and the Laplanders, which would be in Scandinavia, early reindeer culture. And all this is reindeer horn. And for instance, this little knife, it's just, that's all reindeer horn and leather. It's just beautiful stuff. Scrimshaw, really nice stuff. So, and it's early. So I say early, it's probably 1800s. So that'd be the 19th century. And then you've got some of John Miller's mixed off in here. These are Scottish style, but these are all new, all just recently completed. This one's not completed. He's aging this blade. It's probably been in the, he put acid on it, stuck it in the ground probably, I don't know, but I know he does that with some of the blades. But here, I'll get
What's
that.
he say? When he says aging,
So
it'll eventually look like this.
Yeah, it'll look antiqued. So you can see, but he always marks John E. Miller, J-E-M. So this won't ever be confused for an original or a counterfeit. So we want to point that out. That's a good thing to do. And this is a skin-do, small knife that would go in the stocking. It's Scottish. All these are Scottish, the style. So we got Japanese, Scottish, and we got the reindeer culture. And then we got a early mix over here. These are some blades in progress by James Stevens and Jimmy Worden. He's got three pieces here. Byron has a couple here that he's got done, and of course some of mine that most recent X-ray style stuff. And I'm just kind of experimenting with different shapes and sizes.
But we filled up 2 benches for today's show and tell for the first Tuesday of the year. We wanted to showcase some of that.
Yeah, and we are still working on our fireplace
Cooking stand.
And we're going to do a little bit more work on it. I got a piece in the fire. It's probably not quite hot yet, but
We wanted it to soak for a
there
minute.
and get it hot.
You might notice we already took it apart. We showed you last week what it's going to be, but right now we're working on the back brace, the tenons. So maybe one of them legs down there lands, I'll reach in front of it. So this we showed last week would be the front of the legs. Right now we're working on the cross beam, 2 of these, beam that will go in between. We want to go through and we'll rivet on that far end.
Yeah.
So right now we're working on that.
Just getting it up to heat. And this is just a very common, mundane, more or less boring part of the process. But it has to be done.
It's a necessary part of the process.
Yeah.
So we thought we'd start off with our show and tell, some of those unique pieces, and then get into this.
Yeah, so we'll hammer on this for a minute and kind of get that started. And what we're doing is, well, this end I'm holding on to. I've already went ahead and forged a tenon, and it's just a tapered square. So I'm going to do the same thing on the hot end. So it's just a tapered square. Can you see that okay?
We're going to try and mimic that just on the other end.
Yeah, so the total length of the piece is if we get close, we're fine, because that's the only thing that sets the width of this. So if we're within a ½ inch of what we intended to be, we're good. There's no rules. This fireplace is probably 4 foot wide or more, and we're going to be somewhere around 2 foot wide with this device. And that way it's got some airspace and it's just going to look good within that frame of the fireplace opening. And that's kind of what we're using as a guide. What's going to look good and what's going to function well. And so we're kind of using that as our guide. We don't actually have a precedent or documentation for this particular thing. It's just that they requested something to hang, and we. The other option, I haven't mentioned this before, the other option is for us to make a crane that pivots and swings and mount it to the brick.
We'll show you an example of the one that we have mounted into the wood here. Same idea, that arm comes out and can stretch.
And while that is period correct, Casey and I are both a little bit, we're reluctant to make any changes, structural changes to that fireplace and to that house.
Do a crane would require putting holes in the wall, and we're trying to do something freestanding so we don't hurt the historic structure.
And yet, that's always an option once we have a good, solid precedent for a style for that house.
Mm-hmm.
And we know that house to predate 1849 because in 1849, when gold was discovered in California, the owners of that house, they up and went to California because of the gold rush. They were 49ers. So, if and when we find a crane style that fits that house in Arkansas, we'll mimic it and we'll be able to do that. So, some of those kind of things are what we have to think about when we're recreating or making
historic accurate piece.
Yeah, if we want an accurate piece, then we really want it to be accurate. But for this, we're going to get by, and it'll work just fine. We're cooking, so let's get this hot. I want it to be yellow hot. I'm having a little bit of trouble today with getting the heat up. I think we've had so much rain in the last 24 hours, and although the coal and the fuel is certainly not wet,
it's a little damp.
There's
humidity and everything else today.
Things. Yeah, it does affect things. So let's get that hot. Yeah, we're getting up there now.
We're a dry structure, but the newspapers we usually use to help light were damp this morning. It took a while to heat, get our forge ready to work.
There we go. So we're just going to squeeze off about 1 inch of material. So that requires that I kind of lock myself into a position, a stance. And as I isolate that material more and more, it'll kind of grow out and start to taper. Now all I'm doing now is just kind of me hitting that pretty hard out there. It creates a stress in here and it just bends because it's hot. So I'll work on that a little bit more and it'll look like this. I think one more heat I'll get it.
Mm-hmm.
And then we've got a drift that kind of matches this, and we're going to drift the hole that these go in, and so it'll lock itself. And the logic behind using a square tenon as opposed to a round one is that it won't ever turn. Once we get it in there, it keeps the whole frame more rigid. And we'll adjust it to where it sits good on the floor and all.
But that square edge will create corners rather than holding around. That square gives it something really hard to bite on.
Yeah. So
it won't twist.
It'll be basically adjustable. A custom fit that's once it's locked, it won't be adjustable. that's what we're doing. We're just getting that up to heat, working on that. We wanted to share the show and tell mainly. And if you have any comments, please put them below. Something we're talking about doing is bringing more historic pieces in to show and tell. There may be some changes, by the way, on which day we actually present the video. So it just depends on the time of the year, but we'll try to announce that ahead of time so that you can keep up with it if you want to follow this. But we're going to see if we can bring more historic pieces and maybe have a little feature piece to talk about. And usually Peter is the one that brings these things, so it's in his, somehow or another he can get his hands on these things.
He's truly Dr. Bleed, Peter, but Dr. Bleed is his real name.
Yeah, Peter Bleed. So he's really been good about bringing some of his collection. And, we may get him to speak on the subject whenever he brings a certain piece, because he's going to be more knowledgeable than we are about it. So we're really blessed to have the participation that we have, and we really like it, and we appreciate you guys following along with us and putting up with us. So we're just going to work a little bit here, and we're going to leave it with you, and we're glad you stopped in. And for Casey, Marshall, and myself, Lin Rhea, for the Historic Arkansas Museum, we're glad you was able to stop in and see us in the Blacksmith Shop.